So, this is my opportunity to introduce Mr. David Peach. David is the CEO of the Black Dog Ride, which he will explain is different to the Black Dog Institute. I first met David in BNI All About Business years ago.
Nearly 10.
Nearly 10 years ago. And my involvement with David actually got serious when I saw a television program about some mad bikers riding around Australia talking to people about depression and suicide. A lot of you will know this is a really important subject to me, and it's been a privilege to know David. A couple of things to know about David. David is in fact an IT guru who has escaped his industry. A couple of years ago he took the big step of moving away from that to taking over the running of the Black Dog Institute. From my conversations with Black Dog Ride. From my conversations with David, it's a bit like herding cats, except it's not as easy. So, but it all happens. It happens really well. The Black Dog Ride does wonderful work, and this is the man who is the champion of it, Mr. David Peach.
Thank you, Seb. Before I get started, as Seb mentioned, I was a member of another chapter for about 6 years. Can I just say what a fantastic chapter you guys are? The energy in this room is fantastic. And it's not so over the top as some of the other chapters. It kind of gets on and does some things, but it's really friendly and welcoming. So thank you for making me welcome this morning. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yeah.
Because in the past, some of you, I guess, weren't members last time I was here. I gave a 30 seconds. You may be wondering why I'm here. Seb has been one of our great riders for a couple of years now, and Ben Hughes from this chapter has also been on a couple of the rides in a support capacity. He's driven support vehicles and things like that. As our way of saying thank you, I thought I should come along and tell you a little bit about who we are, what we do, and say thank you for supporting us. I'm hoping this thing will work. I may be an IT guru, thank you. But
just turn it around.
That one?
Yep.
There you go. There we go. First up, I want to just show you where we sit in the sector. The mental health sector is a very crowded space, and there'll be a number of logos up there that you recognise. I thought I should tell you where we sit, because all the guys above the green line are government funded. They are providing very vital services, and right at the top there you can see there's reform and sector development, which is largely government. Mental Health Commission and Mental Health Australia. Beneath that is our friends over at the Institute, Black Dog Institute. We are not the Black Dog Institute, we are the Black Dog Ride. We share a similar name, but we're two very different organisations, and I'll explain a little bit more. Along that next line are all the organisations that are in service delivery, and they sit along a continuum of that green line from healthy at one end to seriously unwell at the other, and they all provide services in those different spaces. So at one end you've got people like mental health first aid who do a lot of training for first responders, corporate mental health first aid training within business and so on, all the way through to Lifeline, who are the guys you ring when you're in serious trouble. All those guys are doing very great and really important work, and our job is to support them by directing people to those services. They could have the best programs in the world, but if no one ever uses them, then they're of little value. So our job is to get out into the community, and we do it from a motorcycle, and there's a good reason behind that. And our job, purely and simply, is to raise awareness about depression and suicide prevention. Everyone who comes to our rides has a very personal reason for being there. I'm going to talk in a minute a little bit about the ride that we've just done up to Darwin. But this mission is really important to us. It allows people to align with our cause for their own reasons. We had one guy on the ride to Darwin who lost his brother to suicide in May of this year. That guy had never sat on a motorcycle in his life. He became our top fundraiser on the ride. He rode, at the urging of a mate of his who was already booked on the ride, he said, get off the couch, get your licence. And he went out, got his L's, bought a motorcycle in June, so it's 1 month after his brother took his life. In August, he rode to Darwin, and then came back by far north Queensland and right down the east coast. And he was from Melbourne, so he rode right up through the guts of the country, across the top, and then down the coast, all on his L plates. Pretty extraordinary. Raised $16,000 in the process. So For him, it was a very personal journey, and he's one of about 330 people that were on the ride that all have a very personal journey. A little bit about us. We originally started out in 2009 as a social motorcycle group. We had one guy who started, Steve Andrews, went on a ride, created a cause. He did the inaugural ride around Australia, 2009, and we're commemorating that ride next year with another lap of the map. We're an ATO endorsed charity, meaning we are deductible gift recipient, meaning all your donations, $2 and above, are tax deductible. We are an ACNC, that's Australian Charities and Not-for-Profits Commission endorsed charity, health promotion charity. So part of the reason why we no longer say support somebody like Black Dog Institute is because when we were a social motorcycle club, it made sense to give them our money. We are now the charity in our own right, and we are actually doing some really important programs. Our structure is we are a company limited by guarantee, and we have 7 board members. On that board are people from KPMG, PwC, St Vincent de Paul Society, Queensland Fire and Emergency Services, and Hammond Care, who are in the aged care sector. So we have a very professional, outwardly focused board looking to really take this charity to new heights. Our funding streams, basically, people always ask these questions, so I'm talking about them up front. Our funding stream, we make money to keep our doors open by selling rides to tickets to rides and selling merchandise. That's what keeps our doors open. We're a very small and lean organisation. And then we get donations come in through a gift account. They are credited back out to other projects at 100%. There is no administration cost. That makes us quite unique. We are self-funded. We don't get any government grants. So of the people that support the Black Dog Ride, we are giving out of our own pocket to be there. Our activities have historically been centred around motorcycle events, hence the name, but we are pushing into the livestock and agricultural sector in WA. On Monday last week, we had 2 cows auctioned at the Perth show in our name, and we raised $18,000. They were appropriately named Winston and Clementine. Okay, I'm going to give you some stats about this ride that Sebi took to Darwin last month. We had 328 participants on the ride. 211 riders, 25 pillions. You can read the numbers there, 28 day riders, 37 people who met us in Northern Territory. We had rides leaving every state and territory in the country. I was actually on the Western Australian ride and rode right up the west coast. We had 68 females for 21%. First time we've broken through 20% female contingency on the ride. It's an important statistic, it's one that we measure. We are looking to get more diversity, so we're not a bunch of old white guys on Harleys. The demographic will always be around that sort of number because that's where the registrations of motorcycles sit as well. About 50% of the riders were taking a Black Dog ride for the first time, which means we've got a new cohort coming through all the time. And like I say, guys like Greg out of Melbourne, who did his thing for the first time, he commented to me last week in Melbourne. I was giving a similar presentation down there. He said, I went on a ride and I found a whole new family. So it's a really important part of what we do. 2 minutes ago, okay. This cohort, 16% of the people there have been bereaved by suicide in their families or very close to them. Lived experience, that's people living with depression or live with somebody who has depression. 30%, but yet only 12% mental health first aid trained, so we're driving a lot of people towards training. This is a couple of big numbers here. You can do the math. There's $240,000 that we raised in about 10 days. That is being accredited back out to through a grants program to about 40 individual grants that will go to small projects for mental health projects that can't get on the radar of government funding. This one's a really important one. If you just go to that yellow line in the middle there, 300 riders went on this ride, and each spent about $3,000 to get from their point of origin to Darwin and back. So they're self-funded, no government funding in this. So with that sort of arithmetic, we left nearly $1 million out there in some of the worst drought-ravaged parts of the country. That is, I think, is extraordinary. Sebi, you might want to pass this around. There's a whole bunch of other stats there, but I'm running short on time. It's a really important thing that we do. It's this community outreach. When we go to a town, and we visited 49 of them, by 49 that is we stayed there or we actually held community events in those towns. We obviously passed through hundreds of towns. when we head to a town, we will always write to the township ahead of time and get their mental health networks, their service clubs, their local fire brigades and things out to come and visit us, and we hold a community event and we engage the whole community. And it's important that we then don't just disappear into the sunset the next day. We actually go about connecting people, and that's everything we do. It's connecting to care. That's the the part of it's important to talk, but it's important to do after that. So we don't want to just land in a town, create a need, and then disappear into the sunset. So it's more about connections for us. A few pictures from that one in the top right-hand corner there. That one's actually the 300 or so that were left there on the Saturday morning. That's the very tip of Darwin Harbour, right behind them there. That picture's actually been made into a Where's Wally jigsaw puzzle. That's about it from me. Is there any questions?
I know a heck of a
Yeah.
lot about it. So one, we have passed the tin around several times at Face. Thank you very much. It's really important that that's happened. But David, how does the ordinary schmuck who's not into motorcycles get involved with the Black Dog Ride?